Welcome back, and we continue Nursight's story of his various experiences with the Sorais in the Tower of Il Serrohe. And this time it's kind of grim. They've just been captured in an ambush by the Sorais near the entrance to the Narrow, that very dark and creepy and rather mysterious forested area where it's so tight they can hardly pass through. But now they are being taken on a forced march by the Sorais. Chapter 24. I could have puked. The odors of goat's urine, the rotting bodies of our enemies, the Crodelman, and the friendlier Kabaman's dung bit my nose and burned its way down my throat to throb in my stomach. Of course, the goats and none of the clanspeople of the Valle were there, but all had passed through this passageway through the forest, leaving smelly evidence behind. Before it had been a pleasant passage. Now these scents rose up to mock our failure. The darkness of the Narrow seemed so evil and angry. I feared the very trees would crush us, suffocating and swallowing us with hardly a belch. Yet I couldn't believe the trees would tolerate the Sorais as they herded us along the path. We were tied together at our waists, four to a group, our hands tied tightly to our sides and ankles hobbled, allowing footsteps of only 2 handbreadths. In spite of that, the Sorais pushed us, forcing us to nearly gallop. Netherere was somewhere ahead, tied to 3 other women. I remembered with pain that a cut on her forehead was still bleeding when I last saw her as she was pushed ahead into the yawning mouth of the Narrow. Amazingly, the Sorais strode along the path with ease, their spindly bodies flowing sideways, oozing around bends with little effort. Only their close-cropped heads ducked occasionally under a low, fat branch or leaning tree trunk. The only sounds in the darkness of the Narrow were Sorai bells clanging haughtily. Yet the path did not shrink to bar their passage. And now we continue, chapter 25. As we came upon the place of homes, I could hear rustlings and the scrunch of stone sliding into place to seal off root houses. An extremely foul-smelling Sorai, set off from the others by a solid red headband tightly gripping his scaly forehead, strutted about, laughing and spitting. He finally ordered his troops to push us all into a tightly packed group as the Sorais circled us. He addressed the ground around the short trees.
I'm Sidewinder, chief of the Il Serrohe, and I've got ears like a well-tuned bell. The slightest fart can't escape my notice. You can sulk in your root holes, but it'll just mean the slicing of one more gnomon throat for each toll of my bell. He motioned to one of his underlings to bring a small brass bell from a brown wool bag. From the folds of his robe, the chief Sorai produced a stick with a leather hammer at one end. He struck the bell with it. It gonged loudly, with no beauty to its tone. There, that's the first one. No throat slit, but that's the only toll you'll hear without another one of your scum ending up collecting maggots on the ground. Ha, 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 ha. His laugh reminded me of a corverman greedily stealing corn from one of the lowland fields. Silence answered. Very well, then. He passed the hammer to his underling. He turned back to look at us hungrily. Bring me that one. He pointed to Notherbro, my young friend. He was no more than 4 feet from me. They cut Notherbro's waist rope and flung him out in front of Sidewinder. The Sorai leaned over and picked up Notherbro, shaking him like a captured rabbit, raising a stained blade to his throat. He then nodded to his underling to toll the bell. But before the hammer swung back, Narknose cried out, "No, no, you filthy bastards, no!" The underling froze and stared at the chief expectantly. The chief looked back at Narknose with a penetrating stare. Who the hell told you to speak?
Nartnose stared at him.
Well?
I am the leader of the Gnomon. The ones left here in the place of homes are only the old, young, and women who aren't warriors. But they have just as much guts as any fighting Gnomon. Only on my word will they consider surrendering to a stinking...
Shut up, sniveling little creep.
He turned back and shouted, "The bell now tolls!" He stared, slowly pressing the blade into Notherbro's throat. "Enough!" Nartnose choked. "Come out! Give yourselves up. We're lost." He hung his head and swallowed and gritted his teeth, fighting off hysteria. Sidewinder threw Notherbro down on his face, laughed, and pushed his blade back into some hidden recess in his robe. Slowly, nearly 100 gnomon tumbled from the trees, standing stock still where they landed. Over 100 more emerged from root hounds, like dazed Ursumen coming out of a deep sleep. Sore Eyes spread out and herded everyone over to us. There was much cursing and pushing. Occasionally a young gnomon would kick a shin and elicit a few nervous laughs from us, but generally it was a grim submission. "Everyone is to pack their belongings, that is, all you can carry, and bid farewell to this hive," the chief announced. "What is this?" Nartnose asked, yet his voice revealed he knew. "Why, you're all moving." The chief swept his gray gaze across us and added, "Moving to the foothills southwest of the Tome steeples. The Norwood and place of homes are now ours." No, we won't," echoed 350 gnomon throats. The foothills south of the Tome steeples were evil, with a small but tangled forest and a fierce desert. Few can survive that region, much less the likes of us. Nola growled, "How can we cross the steeples?" "You'll have plenty of time for that, once we encourage you by spearing anyone that doesn't climb." "And the Lynxmen? What of them?" someone else shouted. "They don't like strangers passing through, but if we live in their hunting territory..."
"That's your problem," the chief roared. "Unless you prefer becoming slaves, we need a few scurvy bodies to haul manure."
His evil smile was too much.
"Slaves never," we chorused.
"Then..." Sidewinder's smile disappeared, and he added harshly, "You'll find a way to deal with the steeples and foothills beyond. Pack up, or you'll oil this very ground with your puny bodies." We stood about as the unfettered ones filled body packs and unloaded root houses. We were then cut loose from our waist ropes and our arms were freed. The non-warriors were hobbled like us, and everyone was burdened with a load of belongings or food stores. It seemed the Sore Eyes had no desire to enter root houses, probably because their size prevented entry, and they had even less desire to appropriate the nuts and fruits and grains we mostly subsisted on. Goat turds would have been more to their taste. Oh boy. Not so good for Nurside and all his fellow gnomon. Well, we'll find out how it continues next time with Chapter 26. See you then. Bye.